Hi, Donna. It's nice to see you. You and I know each other, but people watching may not know you, and so I'm going to just ask you to introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Donna Burnham. I serve on the City Council.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming and being willing to answer these questions. So hopefully we end up with some better informed and motivated residents as a result of the interviews. So I'm going to ask you the first question, which is, how important do you believe open space and wildlife are to the residents of Eagle Mountain? And please explain why you believe this.
I believe it's very important. And the reason I say that is because we do a city survey every year, and we'll ask questions like, what brought you to Eagle Mountain? Why do you like Eagle Mountain? What makes you stay here, or whatever? And open spaces is always one of the big answers. We like the open space. And so I do think it's really important to residents. I don't think that there's a lot of understanding always about what open space is. For example, who owns it, or you know what I mean. Some open space is owned by the city, and others are actually private property, and so we have to deal with those issues and things. But I do think that feeling of being having a city that has those open spaces is special, and it makes it worth the drive for people, because we have one of the longest commutes in the state, the longest in Utah County average commute. But for people, it's worth it to live somewhere where they can be close to these open spaces.
Yep. So our second question is, what do you believe to be the most difficult issues faced by the city pertaining to the wildlife corridor, and what tools or incentives, if any, would you suggest using to overcome these obstacles?
Well, the biggest obstacle is that it's privately owned in large swaths of the city, right? And so we're dealing with landowners, and so we're not, and we're asking them to give us something.
Right.
And it's a big ask, and we've been really lucky. We've dealt with two major landowners and another one, that didn't have as much land in the corridor, but two major ones that the corridor went right through their land, and we've been really lucky that they've been willing to come to the table and work with us. But we did have to negotiate and work through some difficult issues, and sometimes had to compromise and do things maybe that weren't perfect for the wildlife corridor, but it kept it intact, kept it there. And one of the things that we looked at with like the Ochre Mountain area was smaller lot sizes. We allowed them to have some smaller lots, some narrower setbacks and things like that, in order for them to accommodate all of that open space. Another thing that we've talked about is allowing some of that corridor space to count as their open space requirements, their park requirements and things like that. If they're willing to do something to make it improve on it or whatever. And so I think we've got some good tools that we can work, and we just have to always, I think outside the box and be willing to work with the developer instead of being confrontational, but working with them. And it's worked so far. And I just hope we can just keep that going. I think those first two are really hard, and I'm hoping that as we get better at this, it won't be as hard. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I think you're seeing some real successes, and so your methodology is...
It's working.
It's working.
Yeah, I think so too.
Good. So the last question we have, and this might be the most difficult.
Yes, it is.
In your opinion, is Eagle Mountain City doing enough to preserve open spaces and the wildlife corridor? And if not, what else can the city or the city residents do?
Well, I thought about this a lot, and My answer really is I don't know if we're doing enough, and that's it's such a learning curve for us, right? You know, when I started on city council several years ago, there just wasn't any discussion about a wildlife corridor. And then I got educated on it, and I thought, well, we need to figure out a way to preserve this. Not just because it's important for the animals, but also because of safety for residents, right? You know, as they're crossing the road, so many people were getting, you know, in accidents and things like that. So it's really important that we think about these things, but are we doing enough? I don't know. What are we missing? I don't know. And it's that learning curve, and I think that we're going to get better and better at it. That's my hope. I'm hoping that we've gone through a very difficult part of it, and I think that now we can use that momentum to start figuring out and learning more about what needs to be done. I know we've had issues with the wash, that we need to build in some protections there. We need to look at our ordinance again and see what other protections need to be built in that aren't there right now. There's just things that we need to be doing, but I think the fact that we hired a wildlife biologist is a huge, I think it makes a statement that says Eagle Mountain is serious about this. Yeah. We think this is important, and we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. So I think we're just going to learn more and more, and I think that that's going to be the key for decision makers in the future, is their willingness to listen and learn. Right. Because we're going to make mistakes along the way, and things aren't going to work quite the way we thought they were. We'll see how these two major developments that have gone through the wildlife corridor, we can see how it plays out, and we can see, oh, well, that's something we didn't think about. Right. And, this is something we didn't think about, or whatever. And we can grow from that. So I don't know if we're doing enough, to be honest. I think we're starting on a grand adventure.
That's a really good way of putting it.
And I think we're going to learn as we go. We have to learn as we go, because none of us are, I'm not an expert. I'm relying on experts, and I'm relying on the Wildlife Alliance to share their knowledge and passion, and of course our staff member, Todd, who's so helpful, and just, we're going to learn as we go.
Yeah. What do you think residents can do to help the process? Is there anything that you would like to see residents participate in or be aware of or do?
Yeah, I would like to see more residents involved, because we've got projects, Marianne Smith's land. There's some things that some sweat equity would really go a long ways towards, and you guys, you've yes. already put in a lot of sweat equity, but a lot of things that go on with the wildlife corridor require a lot of sweat equity, and the more people that we have that are passionate, that are willing to help. Not only that, though, but reporting when you see shooting that's not supposed to be happening, because that makes it unsafe for everyone, right? And cleaning up garbage on the trails when you're out there, being a good citizen and using the trails and encouraging other people to do the same. All of those things help our wildlife and help our city to be able to focus on those things, but do it safely. So I think we need all hands on deck.
We do.
We need a lot of help. It's a lot of work.
Well, I'm thankful for what's been done so far, and I look forward to seeing us get more accomplished as time goes by. And thank you very much for joining us and answering these questions. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course.